council, our role is for the citizens of this town and the future of this town. So while I'm sympathetic to what happens east of us, putting something in place that, one, isn't aesthetically pleasing, two, all it does is just increase demand on the roads from people that don't live here, don't pay tax here, and three, takes away from what we want to do for the future of this community right next to 485.
And I don't know if I know the answer to that question. I just know from our standpoint, we've got to build a roadway that's going to accommodate what's ready for projection.
Sure. I mean, it's nothing personally against you guys.
Yeah.
The CDOT's job is to move traffic safely. And this does that, absolutely. But this also cuts our community into half again.
So the one-way pair, or?
Any one-way pair is going to go right by Shanamar.
Yeah.
And I don't think your constituents or your constituents would be very happy with another extremely loud road in your backyard.
And our preference is not.
Yeah.
I mean, it works. We're not necessarily outright opposed to it, other than the fact that it just costs more. If it was the only alternative we can get to work, we'd be on board with it. If we've got alternatives that we can work. Whether we do conventional or our Michigan left at Stevens Mill, they both work and cost $8 million less. So, we don't see going forward with a one-way pair. And based on what we've heard from, town staff and what you're saying, I don't think y'all are going to be on there with it. But it was something you asked us to look at, and we looked at it and showing it. But I don't think it's the most viable option of all, for a variety of reasons. But
unless we sent you a six-lane cross-section, I believe, at some point in the last several weeks, months. Again, your reaction to that. Full movement, no reduced conflict, but just a straight full movement, six-lane intersection. What's your comment on the capacity of that again?
So at Harris Street, like I said, even at Stevens Mill, we can get a full movement intersection to work. I think part of the cross-section that we saw, at least initially, and Alex, I'm now trying to remember which one was first and which one was second, but at one point in time, it only had like a 9-foot median in the middle. And unfortunately, even it'll catch up at some point. But even at the Harris Teeter access point, we're going to need dual lefts at some point in time in the future. Dual lefts requires like a 33, 34 foot median. So even if we go conventional intersections, the narrow median is not a viable option. And there's just, the intersections are, I just told me the projections are disconnected. Where's there? Still the wrong intersection. But the intersections are so close together that we don't have time to narrow from that 33 foot median down to a 9-foot median in between them, because just the distance between 485 Harris Teeter access and Stevens Mill don't allow that. So even if we go conventional intersections, we're still going to need a really wide median to accommodate those dual lefts into and out of the Harris Teeter access and Stevens Mill Road intersection. And I think a later cross section that y'all sent didn't necessarily have that small median on there, right? Alex?
I think the last one had a smaller median. I think the key difference is in approach was whether to leave the space outside or try to take it from the inside. I think that was the key difference.
So we can go conventional. We're not opposed to it per se. We prefer that Michigan left, but no matter which one we pick, you're going to be looking at a 30-something foot median in the middle to accommodate those dual left turn lanes in the future.
And given that the project is suspended, right? How important is that decision now versus before it was suspended?
So our goal, while these we have a lot of projects that are suspended, a lot of projects that we're still in discussions with the various municipalities on what we're going to be building out there. And what we don't want to do is wait until the projects aren't suspended and start these conversations, which is why we're here today. We want to have these conversations now, get to a decision on what we're going to be building. That way, the second the project's not suspended, we're not having discussions, we're starting design so we can get to actually building the projects in. So do we need a decision tonight? No. But we would like a decision at some point in time, so we know exactly what we're going to do. I mean, in January, February, they're supposed to be doing a huge reevaluation, and we'll see what happens. There's currently bills in the legislature to give us more money to get us through this, and if that happens, it may be before January, February, when these projects become unsuspended. I don't know, but when this whole thing started, we were told in January, February, we're going to do a reevaluation of everything, and we expect that at least some of the projects can start moving forward again. So our goal is before January, February, hopefully have a decision on this and a lot of other projects so we know where we're going. We don't know if this is going to be one of the projects that moves forward. We don't, and I wish I did. But there's going to be some projects, hopefully, in January, February, if not sooner, to start moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Transportation Committee? All right.
How far down across past Stevens Mill does this project go? Because we were told that it went to that First Street and Henry Bridge, where that Idlewild Road is already widened anyway.
It's Rockville.
Right, yeah, Rockwell. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yes, approximately Rockwell. So, in this area, Idlewild Road is wide enough to be 3 lanes. It's not. It's marked as 2 lanes. But we would basically be ending our widening, really our widening ends. A little bit of yellow right here. We would mark it as a left turn lane into Rockwell, and then from there it would just tie into existing 2 lanes, with each lane being really wide for on-street parking.
All righty. Any other questions, Sean? Thank y'all for coming out. And for folks who were here, we had a 6 o'clock meeting with DOT talking about the Idlewild Road corridor widening, and a lot of data online, and y'all that live in that area, it's something going to impact us. But DOT's jobs is to move traffic through our town safely, so that's their job. So appreciate y'all coming out. So give us a couple minutes as we figure the room here so everybody can get in, and we'll start our regular scheduled meeting. Motion to adjourn. From Ms. Braxton, second by Ms. Warren, all in favor? Thank
you. I would say that everyone's going to be testing the volume operating very similar to eventually operating worse.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they are. This is what we're doing. We
Right now,
we don't have that.
What's up? Good, how are you doing? Oh, I don't know. About I've met Joe a couple of times. Well, I'm sorry for you. That's what I get with you. I don't remember what you're talking about. But was it great? Yeah. Your political thing, you're going to say, that's true. Yeah, it automatically. I just wonder how someone like that got a red.
Would you want there?
I mean, I lived in Charlotte
See my wife.
I guess he has to make another vote here.
Another one goes here.
He goes to every football game. I see him tickets from those levels. I go, you're a freak. I usually don't talk to them when I see him unless they're serving fries.
Yeah, well, I tell you. Students, most of them couldn't spell Catholic shape and see in the year. They probably couldn't spell it for school. No, we moved in terms of yeah. My wife came out there, college, and they lived down there. It was off and on. We get so fed up with the mindless people were doing the things that we did in towns and apartment complexes right next to the highway.
All righty, thank y'all for bearing with us there. Appreciate y'all showing up tonight. And first off, introduce Brad. Our newest council member is first meeting.
Oh, actually, just outside.
Thank you, Jim, a little early.
Well, no, actually, we're going to build it, but we're not telling you. Okay, yeah, we're supposed to be not going this year.
Which Devonshire?
Devinger, yeah, right near Devinger.
Okay. So I graduated from Riverside High. So you probably I lived on the road for 3 days, then I moved to Longwood and we lived right on the street.
We're in a small subdivision.
We lived across from High Street. It's been a while since.
It was like really on the border of Gers.
Yeah, technically I would be.
Yeah, Thornblade. And Thornblade, yeah.
All righty, we'll start the meeting. First off, I want to recognize our new council member, Brad Richardson. So, appreciate you joining us, being on the council. So we'll start off with the invocation and our pledge, so please join us in the word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for everything you've done for us. Thank you for being here tonight and be with the council and give us the wisdom and courage to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Stallings. We ask you to protect our men and women both here on the Stallings Police Force and the fire department, as well as our men and women abroad, protect our freedom. Give you all the praise and glory and everything we do. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Public comments is up first on agenda item number 3, which is the text amendment on our development ordinance on the lot size. So, call your name. If you come up to our podium, 3 minutes, state your name and your address, please. So, first up is Mr. Joe McLaughlin.
My name is Joe McLaughlin. I reside at 3205 Strawberry Road in the town of Stallings. Forgive me. Recite that mailing address so often. And I'm not here to discuss to discuss the number 3 on the agenda. Is that all right? I have a different matter I was going to.
Oh, yeah, you can. It's a public comment. You can talk on anything.
I'm sorry. I thought I heard you.
Well, you just signed up for agenda item number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
So
didn't
there's
read that.
some confusion out there.
Excuse me. My fault. The reason that I'm here to speak this evening is in reaction to the meeting that was held last week that unfortunately I wasn't able to attend. Ms. Paxton was kind enough to put together a poll or a survey for the town, the people, residents of the town. And I heard that there are some members of our council that took umbrage with the results or the way that the survey may have been formed and found it to be either the survey itself or the results to be biased or skewed in some way. It's just hearsay that it's kind of picked up from here and there. What I would like to do is challenge the council members that may disagree with the findings or the way the poll was worded or constructed in any way, to perhaps come up with their own. Find some new way to reach out to town residents and find out what the town residents really do think. I think the past 6 months or so have shown that there's a large number of people, wouldn't say that we're necessarily the majority, but who are opposed to the higher density development that we've been seeing, or plans for more higher density development. I've heard some council members in the past also allude to the fact that they've gotten lots of communications from town residents stating their support for higher density. I have no reason or no evidence to prove anything to the contrary, but I would ask that they present those communications from the other residents that may feel that. One of the old sayings that I find myself favoring from time to time is that it's the friction of minds that creates the spark of truth. And I think that's fair that everyone should have their opinions heard and be noted, and that's what I'm up here sharing mine. So I just ask the council to ask the residents more often, as Ms. Paxton did, to find out what we would like done in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, I have a feeling a lot of people did the same thing as Joe, just want to have public comments. So I'll just go down the list. John Delgado?
I'm good. I thought that was a sign.
All right.
I did the same thing.
All right. Well, here. You're here.
Here.
Pam Barta?
That's me, and I've always signed up for the wrong one as well, but my name is Pamela Barton. I reside at 1101 Surrender Drive, Matthew/Town of Stallings. I just recently heard about some of this development that's been going on. I've seen a lot of it posted on Nextdoor. As someone who just moved here 2 years ago, when we were examining where to live, we love the idea of this small town of Stallings. And, when you look at the park across the street, and, 12-mile Greenway, some of those things, I really felt like we had found a little bit of heaven in a small city that was still somewhat close to Charlotte, because I have a son who commutes to Queens, and a sister at the time who had terminal cancer that lived in South Park, who passed away in December, but it gave us that proximity of living in Union County, but we came from a rural area in Virginia and thought, okay, this is about as far away from Charlotte we can get and still have the small town feel. But all I hear is just development, and residents, opposing the high density part of the development. I understand progress and that kind of thing, but if we're developing and you all are the ones voting on it, are we considering in that development how much green space there is, how many other things besides just houses crammed in there? Is there a Starbucks, is there that? And, to kind of make it more like a community versus just housing going up. And as a resident who tries to keep my landscaping, because I was a master gardener at one time, I'm limited to irrigating 3 days a week. And I have to say, my common question to people is when I hear of more development going up, is how can we not have enough water on any given day in the year? It's not just during, restrictions, to not even irrigate our yards, but we continue to put more housing in. So I know that there's some real infrastructure issues with water and sewer, and obviously the roadways, because it takes my son an hour to get to Queens, and most of that is just getting out of Stallings. So I know some of that's been addressed, but at the same time, there's just huge issues with roadways. So I guess I would stand just to ask, why are we pushing for so much development when there just seems a lot of other things that need to be addressed before that? And if there is development, are we really, as this gentleman said, considering what the residents really want? And I think a lot of residents who moved to Stallings were looking for that small town feel. We're not Matthews, we don't live on Independence, highway. We can get to any shopping we want to in 20 minutes, but we would like to still live in a small community. And so I just hope that all of you consider that as you make future decisions.
Thank you, ma'am. What neighborhood is surrounding Drive-In?
Callanwood. Part of it's in Union County, part of it's in Mecklenburg
Right.
County, part of it's in Utah, part of it's Stallings. I'm in the Stallings section.
All right. Thank you. Richard Bullock?
Here.
Just here?
He was going to sign me up.
Okay, and then Leslie, I sure.
Well, he signed my name. So I
Oh,
didn't get
sure, I
one.
can see that. Yeah. All right. And then we have, okay, did y'all want to speak on the,
On the chestnut
right,
issue? Yeah, once they
okay.
do.
Well, let me, we'll do the agenda, and then I'll give you some insight. So what's going on. All right, so let's sit right there. So we got the agenda tonight. EPCON would like to defer number 4 and number 5, their public hearing until November 12th. So we'll grant that. And I'll open the public hearing, hoping that Van Cooper can be ready.
Mayor, on
I was
4 and 5, I would ask that the public who has come in to speak tonight be allowed the opportunity before we close.
Yeah, so let's keep it on the agenda then. They want to speak when it comes up, when we open up the public hearing. So let's keep it on the agenda, just to let y'all know that we're going to defer any decision until November 12th. All right, any other additions or amendments to the agenda? All right, I have 2. We're going to, everybody got the email from, in your packet here, from Alex about Mr. Nagel to sign ordinance concerns that, and then Colleen is here. So, I'd like to put that real quick up there on, number, 7A. And then after conferring with Melody, we need a quick closed session, 7B, pursuant to
NCGS 3, 3,
3.
all right,
8, 143-3 to 11, subsection
A and then 3. All right. Any others? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as discussed? Motion by Mr. Richardson, second by Ms. Paxton, all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, first up is number 3, the text amendment on 19.08.01. I'll reopen the public hearing on this, and let's talk about it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have before us this evening a text amendment that is being requested by staff. As the mayor alluded to, we've discussed this on a couple of different occasions. You all, the last time we discussed this, asked me to take it back to the planning board for a different recommendation. Just to kind of give you all some history, especially for Mr. Richardson, who hasn't been here for the last couple of months. We discovered in our development ordinance in our mixed-use districts that there was a table in there that talked about minimum lot size. And it talked about the minimum lot size for everything in MU2 being 6,000 square feet. We were always under the impression that that 6,000 square feet in that table applied to single-family detached housing. So we brought that to you all just for clarification. We wanted to make sure it was understood that that table applied to single-family only. When we originally discussed this, we were looking at applying it to MU1 and MU2. In our last meeting, I believe it was in September, you all said that you'd be more comfortable if we just left it in MU1 as is and had this apply to MU2 only. And that you all asked me to take that back to the planning board, which I did. They recommended approval of it. So what I'm bringing before you this evening is just that clarification, that that 6,000 square foot minimum lot size applies to single family and MU2 only. That's what I'm looking for approval for this evening. However, I do think that what needs to happen very soon, probably next month, is that I would bring back to you all a table that has some minimum standards for townhomes, which is single-family attached housing, and possibly even some minimum standards for our commercial uses as well in that mixed-use district. That's something we talked about at our meeting last Thursday night about standards, minimum standards for lot sizes for townhomes, And I think that's something that you all are interested in, setting those standards. So I'd like some direction from you all on that. So that will be coming to you in the next couple of weeks, or hopefully no later than late November. But this evening, we're just looking for a motion and approval on the changes that you all have already kind of given a nod of approval to.
All right, any questions for Lynn?
Well, just kind of like I didn't even mention what section it was. I just started rambling there. But we're looking to amend Article 8.4-6 tonight.
I'll support this tonight, but I have a question just for my education about a single-family attached home. What is that? A townhome? Is that
Yes.
Is that?
And there's been a lot of discussion is what's a townhome, what's multifamily, how are the two defined? The main difference is that a townhome is considered single-family attached because that's how it's permitted for building code requirements. It's built as a single-family structure. Also, a difference there, a key difference is when a townhome is built, there's actually a plot of land under it that's sold with that unit. So it has its own, each unit has its own tax parcel. A multifamily building is one structure with many units in it. Building code is different for that. Those have to be sprinklered. There's some kind of a hybrid probably between commercial and residential housing codes that go into that. So that's the difference. That's why that's called multifamily. Townhomes are permitted and built as single-family structures.
Lynn, would you be able to bring up the current Stallings zoning map, just for reference? Sorry, pushing on the spot.
Spare me a minute.
So what I wanted to point out, that just for the residents in here, is that the MU2 is going to be the dark green on the map. And so this constitutes a fairly small area of the Stallings. Some of this is going to be redeveloped at some point in the future. Some of it is undeveloped currently. It's all around our major traffic arteries where we have infrastructure in place or infrastructure planned. So I know there was concern, or there has been concern raised quite a bit about density, but this isn't going in just anywhere in town. Just some context.
And just that what Mr. Martin was referencing is these areas here. This lighter green is that E1, but those are the areas that are zoned for mixed use.
Any other questions for Lynn? Yes, ma'am.
I think I'm correct in thinking that basically what we're doing here is just clarifying the ordinance. It's not a question of whether we are endorsing the 6,000 square feet per lot. That's already in the ordinance, and we're just clarifying the ordinance. I wanted to be clear about that because of some conversations we've had about minimum lot size, and also to emphasize that this is a minimum. Developers are free to build bigger lots, even in the MU2 areas. So I can support it only on that understanding.
Any other questions? Now, let's see, we did have some people sign up for agenda item 3, but I think we're found out that wasn't the case. But just to make sure, is anybody here that wanted to talk about the minimum lot size ordinance, the text amendment that we're talking about tonight? All right, thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And any other discussion among the council? All right, can I get a motion on the ordinance amending the Stallings development ordinance as presented to us for text amendment 19.08.01? Moved by Mr. Burke to approve. Second by Mr. Martin. Any other further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, and that's unanimous. All right, thank you, Lynn. All righty. Next up is number 4, the annexation 53. I'll reopen the public hearing. And as I stated, the owner of Epcon is here. Oh. That's right. I'll read it. To amend Article 8.4-6 of Stallings Development Ordinance to provide language clarifying that the 6,000 square foot minimum lot size applies to single-family detached housing type in the MU2 district. Statement of consistency and reasonableness. The Stallings Town Council hereby finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the 2017 Stallings Comprehensive Land Use Plan adopted November 27, 2017, based on the consistency of goals and objectives set forth in the document encouraging the creation of mixed-use development that consists of higher density housing options. At their October 28, 2019 meeting, the Stallings Town Council voted to recommend approval of the proposed amendment, stated that the Town Council finds and determines that the text amendment is consistent with the key guiding principles, goals, and objectives of the comprehensive land use plan, and hereby recommends its approval. Any questions? Get a motion? No, this is for this one. So, motion by Mr. Burke, second by Ms. Steele. Is it? All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. All right, number 4, annexation 53 of Chestnut Lane. We tabled it on from 10/14. I'll reopen the public hearing. So, just to let y'all know that people that signed up, the owner of Epcon has asked for us to delay the petition until November 12th. But you've signed up to speak, so you're more than welcome to let us know your thoughts. So I'll start. Well, I'll open it up to Mr. Shannon there. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Just wanted to let everybody know that it's basically the geology of the site that are presenting issues for us. I'll let you know one of your concerns we've already addressed. We've eliminated the lots along the back of the property, all 4 of them. So we will not be crossing that creek. It doesn't make sense, and I think it will make for a better overall plan. The issue is just the geology of the site, which we are still working through, because we don't want to present a plan to the council or to you that we can't develop and do it feasibly. So that's where we're at. We're working through due diligence items, and once we get that complete, we're sorry for the inconvenience, but we are trying to get it right before we bring it back to y'all. So that's what we're working on. We've got a lot of open space in this new plan. We were originally at about 38 lots. Now we're looking at somewhere between 27 and 31 lots. So we've reduced the overall lot count. We've given bigger buffers to the property. So I think it's going to be something you like. We just have to make sure we can do it. And that's what we're trying to find out. So it's taking a little longer than we had hoped, but with our developer and our engineer here, we're working to get there. And we think we can be there in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience.
So that was the annexation, so I'll recess that till November 12th. So number 5 is conditional zoning.
I just want to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you all done the survey for this site yet?
We have a survey, we just finished soil borings, we've done phase 1, we've done wetlands. We've got just about all the due diligence in-house now.
Well, the reason I'm asking this question, I know a lot of the properties in that part of the county, the right-of-way goes to the center of the road. I don't know if that's true on your property or not, but there is a comprehensive transportation plan that the trail has that Chestnut Lane is to be widened to 4 lanes. So I think probably one of the things we'll need to discuss is having your site dedicate sufficient right-of-way, if it's not already part of your plan, so that road can be widened in future. So
We'll definitely look at that.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Want you to be blindsided by that, I'd rather know it up front.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, so the public hearing for conditional zoning 19.08.01 is reopened. So I'd like to hear from Patricia Flood.
Yes. Good evening. I'm Patricia Flug, and I reside on 1011 Desborough Drive. I want to thank you, the gentleman, for doing some clarification I wanted to bring up the topic that all these studies of the land has been done before and submitted to Indian Trail Town. And for some reason, and I remember in the meetings, they brought it up that it was rejected or denied, and now they're bringing out to Stallings. And we wanted to know what sort of information you have available to the public. Has the builder made any modifications of sort about why Indian Trail has rejected their proposal? And in Brookhaven, we had a meeting with representatives from Stallings Town, Indian Trail, and Weddington. And it was known to us that all of you wanted to communicate as each town approves different projects. It affects me in Brookhaven because we are both. Half of it is Stallings, half of it is Indian land, and whatever decisions are made in those boundaries of the two towns affects us tremendously. So we want to know, Epcon has modified the design features that Indian Trail rejected it for. We also want to know what sort of, are you building first and then you're worrying about the roads and the sewer and the water after? That's a concern that we need to address before all these high-density developments should be put in place, not after the problems keeps coming to us. The traffic, the safety, the water issues, the sewer issues. So when you decide on these projects, you should have made the planning that all these has been taken into consideration before the developments are being set for. Not sure when this Chestnut Lane is gonna be widened. In that meeting in Brookhaven, with the futuristic vision of Stallings, making it a mixed density, bringing money to Stallings, and approving these projects with increased density. I understood that in the negotiation, the builder was going to put a roundabout, but it was never mentioned the widening of Chestnut Lane. And since it's brought up today, when is this happening? So when this project comes into Chestnut Lane and affecting more the traffic, is this going to happen before or after? So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. All right. Mr. Bullock?
Yes, I am Richard Bullock at 509 Red Barn Trail. And my major concern, I understand construction and growth is inevitable. But with the idea of the running water constantly destroying the landscape as it is, what is going to ensure us that when they clear cut that property, and they will, how is that going to affect the water runoff? That's my major concern. My neighbor has got a bridge that goes across the creek. I have video of water flooding to the point of crossing over it the way it is now. With all that vegetation removed, that water has got to go somewhere. That's my major concern.
All right. Well, thank you for hearing that with us. Glad you're here tonight to hear them. Leslie, did you want to speak?
I have a video. Can you see it?
A video?
The flooding.
Okay. Well, then could you help us get it queued up?
Yeah. I'm looking really quick since we're looking My name is Leslie Bullock, and I also live with Mr. Bullock at 509 Midburn Trail, Matthews / we're Indian Trail / something. We're just right on the border. got a couple pictures of this was last year, but we've been there since 2005, so this is just, hold on, hopefully it'll work. Okay. This is just before it starts getting really bad. And this is the bottom, if you look at the map, we are at the bottom of right beside the creek, like our property kind of goes like a pie. And so the bottom part kind of crosses the creek a little bit. So Escon community, they're right here. Well, you don't have to be an engineer to figure out their land is like this. So if you're going to take all the trees off, all the water is going to go all the way down. Even if you put 3 retention ponds, the water is still going to come down further. Brookhaven has a lovely retention pond, which they abandoned, and they just kind of left it. So, and that's like a sore subject for Brookhaven and us, because it's just a huge cesspool of mosquitoes and frogs and other critters. But this, how do I get back to my, okay. I have a Mac.
There's an X up in the right hand.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh. I was going through a couple, I can't tell what it is.
Miss Paula, what was the date of that video?
That was last year.
Like September?
Yes, yep. But I have, it kind of shifted my stuff around, so I'm kind of, I wish I brought my own computer. I don't know if it's pulling up for mine. Right, but this is just pictures. How do I get back to mine? I have other pictures where it's even got worse than that. And I know that they're doing little soil samples and whatnot, but they're not really thinking, and they have not lived where we have and seen what's happened. And not just last year, it's been happening since 2005. And it will flood up to the creek, or correction, to that my neighbor's bridge. But then, like last year, it's just gotten worse. And this is not my, that's not me.
Ms. Bullock, just a quick question. Was that at the rear of the property?
Yes.
Yeah. Long
The whole thing, and what happens is all that water backs all the way up. So we can't even go down. So our property is at the top, but so we can only go like right there, and then all this water backing up. So,
Yeah. I'll tell you what, can you send them to Lynn, and then we can have them ready for the November 12th?
yes, yes. And I have other questions, but we can just wait. I just have to show you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Is that the water that leaked into the sluice pipe that failed in the spring that had to be replaced? Is that water?
Yeah, the road also was damaged. I don't know if you remember that last year, because there was so much water. It's just, the more construction you do, the more it's just, but yes, we'll help we can.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
That's all right. Next up is Elena Aquinas. Aquino.
I think you got a last name wrong.
There you go. You got it right last time. Aquino.
Aquino.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to us tonight, and thank you for that information, because we're looking for any type of communication is certainly vital to us, and it's literally going to be downstream. I would like to know if it is possible when a new site plan would be available. I understand fully that that is exactly what you're working on, and I know you said the last 4 homes out of those 7 would not be built, but therefore that changes the whole layout of the plat of land and how it could still affect us, because if you still have that huge cul-de-sac going down, we're still in the same situation. Referring to flooding there, we, Patricia and I live directly behind their property, which goes through that in Brookhaven, correct? I'm sorry, 1009 Desborough Drive, sorry. And our properties also flood, even though we're uphill from that point of view. When that had flooded over there, I believe that might have been the same time when Chestnut itself was wiped out, when all the traffic came through Brookhaven and police had to be stationed. We actually had called police to be stationed because it was impossible to get in and out of our own neighborhoods. And that flooding does not stop right over there. That goes through the rest of our neighborhood, well down into other areas. Now you're hitting Stallings, and Indian Trail, and Weddington, and different parts of Matthews. And the creek that runs through our neighborhood was flooded up to the top over into other homes. So that's, at least from our neighborhood alone, there's 22 homes that are affected just by this. That, I'm only counting, you can only go so far from FEMA maps as you're trying to patiently scan through. So it is a real environmental concern, whoever wants to build on that land. I don't have anything against the development. I have serious concerns about the environmental impact because leaving 6%. I don't even think 10% would work. I don't know if there's a certain number. I don't have a degree in environmental engineering or hydrology or ecology, but I understand simple physics and simple water of all of us then suffering financial and emotional and destruction of the environment and also all of our lives. And on one of your articles, I did send you an email, and I hope that you would be able to at another time look through that. Your own council has, in Article 18, a wonderful layout of protection of people and the environment and everything included within that. And I just ask you to stand up for us, for whoever it might be and however it might be, and look into those. With the news of 4 lanes on Chestnut, of course, one of the questions that comes much later is, what is that going to do to our property values? There is so much noise on Chestnut, there is so much noise on speeding, and I understand very clearly that Stallings and Indian Trail split the land back and forth constantly, so no one single entity takes responsibility for it, and no one single entity steps up for it. They take bits and pieces, and I know the police come back and forth, up and down, but still, something has to be done. This cannot just be accepted, oh, you want to make it larger, let's make it larger. That has an absolute impact on us. They speed all day, night, all day long, all night long, and to have that widened, and then the further environmental destruction, that's going to cost us even more. Some of the neighbors are now talking about how much vegetation do we have to plant to protect our own properties? How much water damage are we going to incur? How much are we going to have to pay for it? And I would like you all just to consider that for a moment, just from human being to human being, not position to position, of what we have to go through. I just ask you to protect the ecosystem and any environmentally related consequences on our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle.
I think I probably need to make a clarification about the widening of Chestnut Lane. That is part of Indian Trail's long-range transportation plan. It is not a funded project. It is not approved, but towns do make plans for future, and I think they know that at some point that probably will need to be widened to 4 lanes, but it may not happen in your lifetime. As I said, I mean, I know it's part of their plan, but as far as dates or funding for it, that's not, has not yet happened. So this is not something you need to fear is happening in the next 3 or 4 years. Because we all know it takes DOT quite a long time. We plan in 20-year horizons. So I'm thinking that's not likely to happen anytime soon. didn't want you to go away worried about that for the immediate future.
All right, thank you, Linda. Next up is Richard and Angela Armitage.
Oh, I'm sorry, I signed the form.
All right.
I would like to add something to the agenda for next time, though. I don't know how, where I put that there. We have a terrible issue getting out of Strawberry Drive onto Matthews Weddington.
If you can stay at the end of the meeting and talk to me,
Yes,
and I'll add it to the next agenda. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just real quick on that point, the town staff has already been looking. We've had a radar sensor out on Chestnut Lane for a couple of weeks now. It's going for another week. So it's an NCDOT owned and managed road, just like Matthews Weddington is, but we're doing what we can to kind of address some of the concerns we've heard from previous.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else that didn't sign up to speak?
If I may. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe McLaughlin with 3205 Strawberry Road in Stallings. I'd just like to echo, and I appreciate Ms. Paxton bringing it up, but also Ms. Plug. I think, a big concern here is the fact that this has been proposed. These folks this development wanted to be incorporated into the town of Indian Trail. The Indian Trail didn't want it, which to me raises all sorts of red flags because Indian Trail welcomes any development, as we all know, pretty much. So they found the next best place. People that seem to welcome with open arms more development. So I think we really, really, really need to examine the motivations behind it, plus things like setbacks, getting to what Ms. Paxton addressed, the fact that the road eventually will be widened. I think that's probably a given, not in our lifetimes perhaps, but those kinds of things are going to happen. Plus the fact that as far as setbacks go, how close do we want this? I understand there's just a little question there about the setback and how far they propose to set it off the current road as it stands. And I guess that's really about it, those two concerns that I mentioned. That if Indian Trail turned it down, why are we talking about it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I address that?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, council. I'm the developer that's associated with John on the development of the property. Yes, Philip Hayes, 3440 Torrington Way, Charlotte, North Carolina. The series of events regarding the Indian Trail petition, we applied to be annexed and to be rezoned in the town of Indian Trail back in May. At that time, we were told by Rox Burhans, who was the planning director, that there was a mechanism for us to achieve the really unique lot size that EPCON builds to. Unfortunately, he resigned 2 weeks later and moved to another jurisdiction. When they appointed a new planning director, that new planning director told us that they had no vehicle to create a lot size that fit EPCON's program. And so that was the reason why we withdrew the petition. They did not turn us down. We withdrew it and applied into the town of Stallings. And that's the clarification of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, I'll suspend the public hearing till November 12th. Next up is number 6, the annexation 54 for the Boyd Thunderbird property. And this is an ordinance to extend the corporate limits. This is a petition. Aaron?
First on your packet, you'll have the certificate of sufficiency for annexation 54. And then I just asked that the council then adopt a resolution setting the public hearing date. At your desk this evening, you had an amended resolution with a new public hearing date. It is highlighted in yellow, and that is per the developer's request when they'll bring the rezoning to the council as well.
All right, any questions for Aaron?
Any reason the developer's looking for the week of Thanksgiving?
What was the date? The
November
25th. I mean, they just said they would be ready on the 12th, right? Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to lay any credence to the folks that always see a conspiracy theory and everything. So let's move it out a couple weeks if we could.
There's a lot of steps that have to be done with this one. And one of them is we have to bring it to the subcommittee on the 12th
Okay.
for the DA.
particular annexation in front of you only involves 1.78 acres.
Sure. Any other questions? All right, nice. Get somebody to make the motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution setting the public hearing date for annexation District 4 to November 25th, 2019.
All right. Motion by Mr. Richards, and a second. Second by Ms. Steele, all in favor? Mr. Martin? Oh, all opposed? Let's try again. All in favor? That's 4, all opposed? Mr. Martin opposed, 41. All right. Next up is a statement of consistency and reasonableness. I want to see it on my.
It should be in your packet.
It was in the packet?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. I'll read this into the record again. No, we're good. I got a Mac. Yeah, the statement of reasons. There it is. I got it, Billy. Thank you. All right, the request is to amend Article 9.8-2B, Section B2, to allow drive.
You just asked the last page. I'm not sure what you.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the right one.
That's right. Was that it? Are we done with the rezoning for this? The
Yeah.
public hearing on the rezoning?
Yeah, the process.
Oh, this is the one we forgot to do.
Correct.
Oh.
You guys approved the text amendment and all of that, but you just did not actually make a motion to approve the statement of reasonableness.
All right, I got you. You told me that. Thank you. All right, I'll keep reading it. To amend Article 9.2, Section B2, allowing drive-through circulation aisles to be located between the building and or public and private streets, windscreened by knee wall, and disallowing menu boards, speaker boxes, and pull-up windows from being located on a primary street. Statement of consistency and reasonableness. The Stallings Town Council hereby finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the 2017 Stallings Comprehensive Land Use Plan adopted November 27, 2017, based on consistency with the goals and objectives set forth in the document of providing for highway business that promotes mixed use. At the September 23, 2019 meeting, the Stallings Town Council voted to recommend approval of the proposed amendment and stated that the Town Council finds and determines that the text amendment is consistent with key guiding principles, goals, and objectives of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and hereby recommends its approval. All right, motion to approve. By Paxton, seconded by Mr. Martin. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. There you go. Thank you, Brad. All right. Seven A. All right, everybody, I don't know if you had a chance to read Alex's email where he summarized Mr. Davis' concern about putting the for sale sign up in the common area of his neighborhood. Obviously, you all see that every day, but or every weekend. But it is in our ordinance that the for sale sign for a home is not allowed, and so Colleen was doing her job. So tonight, Alex has brought some background to us. And Colleen, why don't you summarize where we are right now?
Mr. Mayor, Town Council, when I do my rounds of the town, I start at like 6:45 in the morning, make them around. I see real estate signs because they're off-premise signs, and any other sign that might be in town. I take them down, put them in my truck. I get back, I call the people who are on these signs to say, your sign's not allowed in the town to be put off-premise. And that you can pick up your sign, and I tell them where the sign is located. They have until such and such a date to pick up the sign. they pick it up, that's good. If they call me and say, gosh, Colleen, I need an extension, I extend it, they come and pick up their signs. If they don't pick them up, the sign is thrown away, it's recycled. So I do call them, let them know what the town ordinance is, and give them the opportunity to pick up their sign. I also remind them, some of the realtors who think that their house that they're selling is in Matthews, that I remind them that it's in Stallings. Do I have any questions for the council?
Yeah, Brett, just that last comment, you remind them that their houses and...
Some of the realtors I've called to pick up their sign, to let them know about the ordinance and about doing the off-premise sign that's only allowed in front of their house.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant, is the town of Matthews' ordinance around signs off premises?
Well, I have no
different than
idea,
ours?
sir. They're going by, they think that the house that they're selling, because I've picked up their sign and I've called them and introduced myself, they think it's Matthews, where it's in Stallings, so.
Thank you.
So the whole point is off premise is the key. So they're allowed to put it on anybody else's private property that allows them.
Well, it's the sign for the house that would be for sale is typically in front of the house that's for sale.
But the off premise is the common areas that are the entrances to the neighborhoods.
Yes,
right. And so that's what Mr. Nagel is asking for us. And when I was talking to Alex, we do have the following signs are exempt from this ordinance: government signs, signs for nonprofit organizations sponsored by governments, recipient, informational signs, directional signs, wayfinding, and traffic safety signs. So Mr. Nagel's point was, well, this is an informational sign telling somebody where the house is for sale. So I wasn't going to argue with him, so I told him I'd bring it to council and let council decide. So I don't want any action tonight. I'd just like for everybody to think about it, talk to Alex or Lynn on the ordinance, and talk to Colleen and get some information on that. But, I just want to bring it before council tonight. To me, it makes sense. If the what I told Mr. Nagel was, I asked him if his neighborhood HOA allowed, and he said yes, they allow it. Signs, I don't know if you're just telling me that or just he researched it. If the HOA allows it in their neighborhood, for sale signs up around the common area, I think we got to allow them as well. So,
Sir, this was in the right of way.
Yeah, that was.
They're in the town right of ways, or in the right of ways of the roads. And that's different than the HOA. I lived in that community, and the HOA allows one sign in front of the property, and that's it.
So I guess my line of thought here is if this is a directional sign, then what's going to prevent a CBD store putting up a directional sign to what they're offering, or Tassos putting up an information sign? If we're allowing one, we're allowing all. So I'm sympathetic to the homeowner. I get it. We have two realtors on the council here. I guess I would question how many sales are done by drive-bys these days.
I would say, what do you anticipate? Because one of the, I mean, a lot of people do their research online, but then one of the other, and I did have percentages on this, I wish I brought it. People drive around neighborhoods that they are interested in, and I've had a lot of people call me because they've seen a sign directing them into a neighborhood and they want to see that house. So I think there's some real benefit to the homeowners for doing it, but I do think it kind of opens a can of worms with regard to what's allowed and not allowed. So maybe Melanie could help us out with that. Because, I mean, in some ways it's kind of a free speech issue, I guess, but then.
I add something. When I first started as code enforcement in November 2 years ago, I was picking up, taking down, putting in my truck at least 70 signs, and this is no exaggeration, on a Monday. And I would call the people and say the sign's not allowed, and go through my spiel. On a typical Monday now, I'm picking up 2 signs. So the town doesn't look as full of signs as it had. I think it looks a lot cleaner. And I think once we open the door to signs, it's going to be that all over again.
Well, the signs you were picking up, though, were from a developer saying X neighborhood.
No,
this
no,
way.
sir. No.
There were 70 signs for people's for sales?
Not for sale, no, but between, for sales, and if it's an open house sign, for an open house, say someone puts that sign out on Thursday, I leave those go. But if they're still there on Monday, I pick them up and I call the realtor and say, I've got your sign, this is where you can pick them up.
And I think particularly for open houses, it'd be difficult to drive the traffic in if you weren't allowed to do that.
Right, and I don't touch those signs, I let them, but if they're still there on Monday, I pick them up and I call them and say, got your sign, if you want it back, please pick it up.
And that was his point where he lives in Wildwood Sport, nobody's gonna drive through it, it's on the cul-de-sac. Right?
Well, a couple thoughts, and again, I appreciate not asking for action tonight, it's a new issue, so probably not thoughtful. Two questions, but does the off-premise sign ordinance now prohibit the citizens' sign from being on HOA common-owned property, or just right of way? It's off its premises, but it's on HOA-controlled property. Is there a distinction?
It's in the right of way, based on the amount,
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
based on from the middle of the road over. In the HOA for Willowbrook, that falls into the right of way for DOT too.
But I don't think, I think it would prohibit it either place.
On his premises means in his yard.
Right,
That's
and
right.
John made a really good point. We can't discriminate. We can't allow a real estate sign to be put up in a, like you said, a CBD oil sign. And I think the point is to try to keep these signs from just proliferating all over town, the right of ways, and, you know, the swim tennis club, and I think that's fine.
Well, sure, and I think it is a First Amendment. We don't think about it that way. It's a First Amendment issue because you have to be content neutral, I think, when you allow one sign. So a business that we may not want to see advertised could certainly do it. So I'm sympathetic to that as well. The open house signage that we allow, does the ordinance allow for temporary use of those, or are we just overlooking?
I'm just overlooking.
Because you're facilitating sort of an open house type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
Same thing with the residential, the trailers that drive around, drop signs, and pick them up on Monday at the right of way around town, Charlotte.
Well, it depends. If they leave them where I pick up litter, the sign's going in my truck.
On Monday. Is that just because, again, I'm just asking questions. You don't work on the weekends, I assume.
Right.
Do we have code enforcement patrol on the weekends?
Not usually, no.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Colleen? All right, but like I said, just food for thought. We may bring it up on the agenda. Thank you, Colleen.
Mr.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, just to clarify, first of all, I want to recognize Colleen because code enforcement is a really tough job. It's one of the toughest out there in Bloomingdale, but she really, I think you can tell already, is dedicated, but does it in a respectful way and with a heart. So I want to recognize her for everything she does. I think some of the things we take for granted now wouldn't be happening without her. The second thing is I wanted to kind of touch base to see if there would be direction here. Do you want the staff to kind of research this? Because I do think there's a legal component to this if we want to look at changing this, and it's going to require us to ask Martin to kind of do some research and put some legal hours. So I wanted to see if there is anything the staff want to do, maybe kind of narrow that down a little bit so we can maybe have a mission of finding out what exactly we need to do. Make sense?
Yeah, I would like to do that, make sure I'm stepping on.
I'd specifically like to know, is there a line that can be drawn between a commercial use sign and a private use?
It's kind of the commercial use versus kind of
To John's example, a commercial establishment advertising in a private, right away or anywhere versus a private citizen trying to sell.
Or you can have a garage sale.
Garage sale.
The yard sale signs are covered in our ordinance.
All right, thanks, Alex. All right, can I get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 143.318.11A3? Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Ms. Steele, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous, all right.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And,
Took a while.
I just interrupted you with Dad colitis, just you're waiting for somebody to do something wrong.